Today you won't need the kit. But if everyone's ready, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start with the horizontal wrist and shoulder stretch. So you're gonna extend forward. We've been doing this for the past 2 weeks. And then within that, you can add a dynamic move. Now you're gonna add those wrists. If you wanted to isolate it and work on one thing, you can. So biggest thing is you're breathing while stretching. You're focusing on these certain movements. And in about 5 seconds, now you're gonna rotate. If you're gonna go inward or counterclockwise, nice and slow. Some people like fast. And within that, we've learned you can do dynamic stretching. So what that means is now it's movement in the stretch. Static is now you're holding that muscle together. Next one you're gonna go is you're gonna go up vertical. Same thing, you're working now on your shoulders and then adding that wrist rotation. If you had wrist weights, bands is something you can use. You can add now your hands opening up. It's a good way to stretch, especially if you're doing upper body or you're gonna add weights. So go ahead and go inward, continue to rotate. And the next one we're gonna do is we're gonna now go into our triceps. So start with your left side. You're gonna go behind your neck and then you're adding a lean with it. So 2 movements. Modification for this, you don't wanna go behind the head, is you can extend that tricep out with a band. It's another modification. So in about 5 seconds, you're gonna rotate. Go ahead and switch. You're gonna bring that right elbow and then add that lean. What you're doing is you're stretching out the tricep and then that ab area. Good job, everyone. Make sure you're drinking water. From here, grab some water real quick if you need it. Next one's we're gonna focus on our shoulders. So if you're all, I think everyone's seated or on the ground, you're gonna bring those right up, nice and down at your own pace. In about 10 seconds, we're gonna add to the back. So right now it's just up and down, focusing on your shoulders. Hand cyclists use it a lot. That rotator cuff, go ahead and start going back now. It's that part of the posterior chain. So you really want to focus if you climb, you do a lot of movements, paddlers, anyone that does paddle sports, so really engage that back. And then now we're gonna go forward and you're gonna start increasing that range of motion. You know your range of motion. So some people can really open up. Good job, Cheryl. Good job, Brent. Good job, Frank. Good job, Johnny. From here, next one you're gonna do is you're gonna take your palms, if you're seated on a seat, if you're seated on a chair, facing away from you, and you're gonna reach back. As far as you can go, you should never feel pain, should be feel comfortable. And come back in, you're gonna do a set of 5. So what we're doing is we're targeting every side of our shoulder. There you go, good job, Helena. She's standing, that you can also stand as well. Once you get your 5, next one we're gonna go to is you're gonna put those hands together and then you're gonna go up and down. So almost like prayer hands, working on our wrists. If you need to isolate, if you do have wrist pain, go ahead and do one at a time.
Edward, can you get them to mute, please? I can hear.
If you, if everyone can mute this. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, if you want to mute yourself, you can, please. And then if you do have questions, you can always unmute. Next one we're gonna do is you're gonna do opposing reaches. So we're gonna start with that left arm, keep that right arm down, and then you're just gonna lean and stretch. Holding, make sure you're breathing. And then now you're gonna rotate. So some people are very flexible. You still wanna keep that other arm down. Make sure you're stretching. Now, if you're seated on the ground, seated on the chair, if you're gonna do the standing, there's a couple differences. Seated athletes, you're gonna start with that trunk rotation, shifting weight where you feel comfortable. If you choose to stand, then it goes into your hips. You're gonna work on that hips. So we use this if you're a recumbent tricyclist, you're gonna use your hips a lot, those hip flexors. And then now if you're seated athletes, I want you to lean to the right. And those that are standing, you're gonna go into your knees now. Make sure you stabilize your knees.
Arms out.
So yeah, nice good lean if you're seated athlete or seated on the ground. Then you're gonna rotate left. Every time you work on your knees, you wanna make sure you're stabilizing them with any circular movement. Good job, everyone. From here, we're all gonna either be seated on the ground or standing. You're gonna do a back arch. You're gonna raise those arms again and you're gonna lean back.
Hey, Gilbert, sorry to interrupt, but if everyone could put themselves on mute, whenever
Yes.
we can't see our instructor, so please
Yeah,
mute.
I could highlight myself too. I'll do that if that's easier.
Yeah, just mute all, Gilbert.
Okay. All right. So next one we're gonna go into, and you guys can change back to gallery view too. I'll just be highlighted. Next one we're doing is that back arch. I know some of y'all already did it. So now we're gonna go into a cow pose. Is from yoga. If you're a seated athlete, you're gonna put those arms on your knees, one arm, and then you're just gonna lean forward. You arch the back, and then you rise up. Same thing goes if you're standing. It's a little bit harder. I would recommend going to the ground. Basically, it's just the arching of the back, the leaning forward. Some have done it really in yoga. So when you come down, it's you're arching in. As you come up, almost stretching that out. And our last one we're gonna do for this warm-up is our hip opener. So seated athletes, it's a couple of variations. You can manually open the hips with your elbows. If not, if you're able to, then you can open up, working on those hip flexors on the IT band. And then those choosing to stand, you're just gonna go into whatever you feel comfortable with a squat. Some people like to go low. And if you're on the ground, you can go into a butterfly. So meaning, just like Christina's doing, you bring those legs down, anything that'll stretch those hips. So there's a couple ways. Make sure you're breathing. You can also just manually move it. So it's just working with our skeletal system. It's really opening up the hips. So go ahead and grab some water, and I'll go over what we're going today. So today we're gonna go over, there's gonna be two things you can choose. We're gonna either focus, the first part is gonna be wrist mobility, and then those that choose to do a seated version or they wanna do it on the ground, we're gonna work on our hip flexors and that mobility. First one we're gonna do, and I'll go slow. First one we're gonna do today is if you have your roller stick, you can take it out. If not, you have anything, you don't need it, but I would recommend it. The first one, those that choose to do wrist mobility, it's gonna be, you're gonna put your arms forward and you're gonna imagine you're pulling something up. So we're gonna work on our wrists. So that's one way. You can do it one hand, the modification. You can also just do it without. So that's the first one we're gonna do. The seated version or working on lower body. The lower body is gonna be, if you're seated on a chair, you're gonna do what's called a lift off, is here. And if you are seated on the ground, it's gonna be the same thing. You are gonna be nice and comfortable and you're lifting up. What that's doing is engaging the hip flexor or hip, and we're gonna do a whole bunch of mobility movements today. So go ahead and get started. I'll show the wrist mobility if you're doing the lower body one today. So you could do it really fast, you could do it slow, and a way, I don't know if some of y'all may seen this, is they usually attach weight to it. So they're kind of pulling it up. So if you don't have it, I want you to focus just on one wrist at a time. And then halfway in about 15 seconds, we're gonna go backwards. So you're gonna go back. You could do this one hand, just rotating. And then those that are doing the lower body workout, you could do it on your chair and you're raising that leg. Then you're gonna rotate. or you could do it on the ground. So go ahead and now go backwards if you're doing that wrist mobility. It's also engaging the forearm muscle. And if you are doing the seated one, go ahead and rotate to another leg. And I'll make sure Johnny is missing one, Cheryl's missing one, Vicky, I'll make sure to send those out to y'all. So next one we're doing, so continue. In about 5 seconds, you'll stop. The second one you're gonna do, those that are doing wrist mobility, is you are gonna take that roller stick, whether it's in your left hand you start or right, or you just use your right hand or left, is you're gonna do wrist rotations. So you're gonna hold that item and then rotate one side. Now, those that are doing the lower body, you're gonna do hip flexion. So basically you're gonna do a knee lift in your chair if you're seated. So just nice and comfortable as far as you feel no pain, range of motion, really come up. And those that are on the ground, you're gonna bring that knee as straight as you can and engaging that hip and the hip flexor. So go ahead and get started. So really focus on keeping that arm straight, rotating that wrist, and you'll notice some people have far greater range of motion than others. If you're doing the lower body, it is really engaging those muscles that we don't use. They may be the weaker ones, our glutes are really weak. So continue. In about 5 seconds, you're gonna go ahead and rotate. 3, 2, 1, go ahead and rotate the other way or keep working on that same hand. And if you're on your legs, go ahead and rotate that as well. So this is something we don't use. We use it on a daily basis. We use for lifting, our wrists for many things, our legs, hip flexors. Like I said, if you do lower body exercises or any activity and you're using legs, that is something we really got to work on. From here, you got about 5 more seconds. Next one you're gonna do, if you're using the wrist, the manual wrist foam roller stick, you are gonna now go forward. So just lean, nice back and forth. And then those that are doing the lower body, what you're gonna do is you're gonna start with one leg, you're gonna lift it up, and then you're gonna move back and forth. So if you're seated on the ground or your chair, you can use an item or imagine something, and then you're just gonna swing that leg over. So what that's doing, it's adduction and abduction of that hip. So it's just focusing on those leg muscles to work together to swing that over. So continue. In about 15 seconds, we'll rotate. So we're doing just like we did with our shoulders, we're hitting every angle of wrist mobility. So continue. So what you're doing, we did extension, flexion, we did adduction, and abduction is just fancy words saying we're going forward, side to side. Go ahead and rotate now to the other leg or other wrist. And then continue. I'll go over the next one. The next one is those that do have their kits. I want you to get a preference of the ball. Specifically, I would get a bigger one. What you're going to do now is you're going to go from the fingertips and you're going to slide that ball and slide your wrist upward. So you're working on the grip. You can do this with weight too if you had dumbbells. So you're just extending those fingers, and then those, you can use any item, even if you don't have a kit, your water bottle. So what you're doing, you're going to bring that wrist forward, and in about 30 seconds, now you're gonna go to the side. So basically, if you see my wrist, it's gonna go forward, and then it's gonna go to the side and extend. So we're working our wrist extensors, our fingers, I'm sorry. What you're working is the same thing as that full extension of the fingers, and then closing and moving up. And then those seated, what you're gonna do now is you're gonna take both legs, and then you're opening out, and then coming back down. So if you're seated on a chair, it's a little bit harder. Seated on the ground, definitely hard as well. So what you're doing is now bringing those up. So go ahead and do either O's. If you do have an item from the kit, I would use one of the bigger balls. And what you're doing is let it roll all the way down and then come up. So really working on that grip. In about 10 seconds, go ahead and you're gonna rotate to the back, to the other side. So go ahead and rotate and then those that still, go ahead and take a break, grab some water, and you'll jump in about 10 seconds unless you wanna continue. It's a really hard one. And then those that are using the item now go to the side. And we got one last one. So the next one, grab some water real quick. We're both gonna do these. The group that's doing lower body and the group that's doing wrist mobility. If you're seated athletes on a chair, or you're on the ground or standing, you're gonna lean forward. You're gonna extend those arms out, and then you're coming back in. So it's one motion. You can do these standing. I know Elena was doing. So you just squat a little bit, lean forward, extend out, and then you come back in as a way to engage those legs. Squat. Good job, Leslie. Seated athletes is where you feel comfortable and coming back up. So it's working on multiple chains. Nice breathing. And you can even do two movements. So you can lean forward and then extend out. Good job, Caesar. If you're standing, squat down, then lean forward, come back up. Good job, Jim. Good job, Julie. Good job, Donna. Good job, Brent. Keep going. We got 10 more seconds. I'm gonna figure out music. Next one we're gonna do, you got 5 seconds. We're gonna grab some water. We're gonna go over today thoracic mobility. So if you do have spinal cord injury or spinal cord pain, you can focus on another movement, or you limit the range of motion that you're doing. So we're gonna get started, grab some water, and I'll go over this. We're all doing together. First one we're gonna do today, let me just connect the music. First one we're doing today, it's gonna be focusing. So these next exercises is focusing on the middle of our back. So thoracic mobility, the first one, if you're a seated athlete sitting on your chair, you're gonna lean forward, and then you can rest your arms. You can just, if you wanna hold that, I would say you can rest one arm, and then you are gonna rotate up. Nice, you're gonna do this way. If you are seated, or if you're on the ground, then you can go ahead and lean one arm, and then you're rotating up. So go ahead and get started. Go nice and slow. So you could do this standing too. It's a little bit harder. And all you're doing, you can put those arms together. And you're just rotating. So whichever you feel comfortable, make sure that head is down, keeping nice and straight with the spine. In about 5 seconds, we're gonna rotate. And I'll make sure to send you some bands, Caesar.
I got plenty of bands and all that, brother.
You got bands? All right. Because what you can do, Caesar, too, I'll send you some, and you can work on your arm different ways. So now go ahead and rotate, if you haven't rotated yet, to the other side. So make sure if you're leaning forward, that neck is forward, your neck is straight. Make sure you're breathing. From here, go ahead and rise up, grab some water. The next one we're gonna do, I'll explain it, is if you're seated on the ground, seated on a chair, or standing, you're gonna take that left arm or your right arm, you extend almost like an arrow. The right arm is gonna follow and then back. And then you're gonna swing that. So you're gonna do pulling like an arrow and then rotating that arm. Now, modification is just one out and then you rotate. So right here. So just imagine the arrow, you're gonna do 5. What is working is not only our shoulders, but also that thoracic. So pulling, and then you're swinging that arm over. So go ahead. As you pull, I want you to breathe. So you're taking deep breaths, exhale. So you could focus on one side, do it really slow. You can add bands to this.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Gilbert, on that one, I think I have rotator cuff. I can't go all the way up and around. So what is the modification? I can't bring my
So the way you would modify is as you're pulling, you can change the range of motion. So I'm going back, right? Fully. You can go here and then just swing that shoulder. So your circle essentially is shortened. So instead of doing a full circle, you can go here, keep that elbow flex, and then you just bring it over. And everyone's range of motion is different.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. The next one we're gonna do is you're gonna lean forward. The arms are gonna be extended again, but this time you're rotating those arms, those palms up. You're gonna do a set of these, and you can do it. You could break it down. Some people really like the movement. If not, you could stay stationary. Standing now, you'll be here, breathing. That's engaging our bicep as you turn. And then some people, this is a more advanced one, you can rotate back out. So not only you're rotating, you're going, so you just got to be careful with that one. That's more advanced. So make sure you're breathing, you're leaning. You got 10 more seconds, and then I'm gonna start going over the next one. Next one we're gonna do is we're gonna now go from our hands down. Everyone's gonna be seated. You're seated on your chair, or you can do this standing. You're gonna go from palms facing away from you. You're gonna go into a W where you're flexing that scapula, and then you're going cross. So it's one fluid motion. You take it nice and slow, one-handed. So nice modification. So here, then you go into that. So the biggest thing is you go nice and slow. You go into the W, and then you go nice range of motion where you feel comfortable, really engaging that. So go ahead and do a set of 10 at your own pace, nice and slow. Remember, modify. If you don't enjoy this behind the elbow, then you just go the W. So right here, and then you go to the back. So it's here, W, nice and comfortable. Standing, you can do it as well, or you sit on the ground. So you'll feel those shoulders open up, the triceps, as we're actively stretching them. And we're almost done. So once you get your 10, go ahead and grab some water, and we're gonna go into our cool down. So the biggest thing why we did wrist mobility, why we did thoracic mobility, the big one with thoracic, since it's in the middle of our spine, there's a lot of research coming out that it helps with breathing. So cyclists, people that climb, paddlers, anything we do, we breathe, and it goes a little bit into yoga and these meditation, fitness programs that it's that diaphragmatic breathing. It starts from the belly, it rises up. So thoracic, if you are plunged, what it does is compressing those ribs, and it doesn't allow your lungs to expand. So this is something it's a lot of people don't do. I don't do it personally either. I started to learn, but that's the big thing with thoracic mobility. These are some, like I said, I can send a list. You can also find some. You can do them with your kits. The big one in the kits is if you have a peanut. That's what I call it. It's the one with 2 little balls, and then this you can place on your spine, and then all you do is you just lean. You can lean on your chair. Bigger one, now foam roller, you can place on the top of the spine. You can place it in the middle. You never want to go to the lower part of the spine. There's a lot of research that just says it's not really that helpful. And the biggest thing is, you know, your body. So like I said, if you feel pain, I wouldn't recommend it. And like I said, you always got to advise to your PT, your physicians, your doctors of what's good, and then learning your range of motion. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into a cool down. For this one, make sure you grab water. What we're going to focus on is some new exercises for our neck. So the first one we're going to do, we've done before, is you're going to bring that chin down. You're doing a chin tuck, and then you're going to go back to neutral. So when I say neutral, it's just forward. We really want to stay away from this back movement. It's just natural. It's not natural. It causes pain. So you're going to go ahead and bring that chin down. Take a deep breath, exhale, and then come back to neutral. Go at your own pace, your own breathing. You're going to do a set of 5. So bringing that chin down, come up. You can close your eyes, really inhale, exhale. Get your 5 at your own pace. And remember, neutral, so you're always looking forward. So once you get your 5, grab some water. So next one we're going to do, as you're continuing with your 5, I'm just going to explain it, is now you're going to add an elbow. So you're going to start with your left or your right, your choice, and you're going to rotate that neck like you're trying to touch the elbow. Come to center, you're going to do 5. Nice and controlled. Remember, if you don't want to elevate that elbow or those shoulders, then you don't have to add the elbow, just simple cervical rotation. Nice and slow. Take a deep breath when you reach the elbow. Go ahead and rotate. Remember, you don't have to raise the elbow if you don't need to. Good job, everyone. Good job, Helena. Good job, Donna. Good job, Johnny. Once you get your 5, grab some water. Next one we're going to do is you get some water and I continue talking. It's going to be cervical circles. So you're going to take both arms, one arm, you're going to cross them. What you're going to do is you're going to start to the side, come down, come to the side, come down. Nice fluid motion, nice and slow. It's our neck. Or you can just do one side at a time if it causes strain, the full motion. Good job, everyone. So go ahead and grab some water. The next one we're going to do is now we're going to do some spine mobility. So what you're going to do is you're going to lean forward. You're going to start with this left one and then lean, and you're going to go up and down. So it's more shoulder mobility. So right here, we've done it where you're straight up. Now you're going to lean. And some people really have really good shoulder rotation. Go ahead and rotate to the opposite side. You can also do these with bands, with weights. Now it's a workout. Just be careful because it is our shoulders. Make sure that when you do add weights, nice and comfortable. It's not moving you. You're the one controlling the weight. So go ahead and grab some water. The next one we're going to do is just a simple elbow flexion and extension. What you're doing is basically a curl here. And when you come to the curl, you can raise the elbows, coming back down. You can go really slow and engage that bicep one at a time. So here, then rise up. So this is where you would add weights. A lot of people do bicep curls. Good job, Frank. So you can even place those hands on the shoulder, then rise up. Make sure you're breathing. The next one, go ahead and grab some water. We're going to focus on is going to be our trunk. So the first one's going to be those trunk raises we did, where it's just we did it now. It's no movement. From here, I want you to go as high as you can. And then take deep breaths. So really expand those lungs. In about 5 seconds, then we're going to rotate right. So go ahead and start leaning to the right. Taking deep breaths. Start leaning to the left. Now you're gonna go back. You can do these standing as well. And then last one is you're gonna lean forward. As far as you can feel comfortable, what this is doing is working on our glutes, hamstrings, the skeletal system, and then you're gonna do a row. You're gonna do 5 of these. So lean forward. You could do both arms, one arm. You can add bands to this, essentially now really working it out if you added the bands. Good job, everyone. Go ahead and grab some water. The last ones we're gonna do today, it's gonna be breathing. So the first one is those palms. You're gonna start, we've done it where you put palms together, you could do one hand. So now you're gonna elevate up at your own pace. You're gonna do 5 and you're breathing the whole time. And then you exhale down. So whether you're slowly rising. So good job, Cheryl. So it's at your own pace, make it your own. Just get your 5 in. But the biggest thing I want you to focus is in that deep breath, really expanding the lungs. And as you come down, good job, Jim, breathing out. We use this in all exercises, in all sports. Especially in cycling. Jim, Frank, Caesar knows, Yulene knows. Once you get your 5, you're gonna go opposite. You're gonna now take those palms facing away from you, extend it out, and then you're rising here. And then you just drop. Just exhale out, release it. You're gonna do 3. So what you're doing, not only are you breathing, which is the biggest focus, is you're really targeting those shoulders, that range of motion. Good job, everyone. Last one, if I'll give some lower body ones. The first one is toe touches. So those standing, you can go down, go all the way to your toes. If you're flexible, touch them. If you're a seated athlete, which you can do if you're seated on the ground or seated on a chair, you bring that trunk forward. Relax it on those knees, and then you're trying to touch toes. So go ahead and hold. You can do either a static, meaning you're just holding down, or if you enjoy dynamic, you are now slowly bouncing. You want to do dynamic more in the beginning and static at the end. So go ahead, rest either seated athletes or those standing. The next one you're going to do, about 5 seconds, is you're going to do a quad stretch. So those standing, there's a couple ways. Make sure for me, like if I want to balance, I'm gonna bring that knee up, really flex it. If you're on the ground, it's a little bit more stable. You lean on the floor, you bring that knee up. Seated athletes, just like Yulene's doing, is now you bringing that knee up manually. If not, you can do it, be able to move the leg here. You can shift weight. Bring that leg back. There's a couple ways. You can also use your kit and then you're massaging it, foam rolling it. There's a whole bunch of ways you can do for your quads. Those trikes, the people that use recumbent trikes, so Frank, Caesar, that's a big, the quad, the hamstring is really got to focus. I know Jim, focus on those quads. Go ahead and rotate if you're standing to the other leg. If you're a seated athlete, there's a couple ways. Use your kit. Now you're manually foam rolling those trigger points, or you're stretching it. Next one we're gonna do is the hamstring. So those standing, you're gonna make sure you balance yourself. If not, you go to the ground and that leg will go behind you and you're doing a sprinter stretch. So now you can lean back and really get that muscle going. And seated athletes, you can flex the hamstring. If not, you're taking the kit and then you're using the ball. You can use the spiky ball. You can use your foam roller stick and just get under the hamstring. It's huge. So you really do all those work. And the last one we're doing is now those standing. You're going to extend those legs. You can go down to the middle, and then at your own pace, you rotate to the right, you rotate to the left and hold. Seated athletes, now, if you're seated in a chair, if you're able to, you can extend those legs and then lean one way. Make sure you're stabilized. If not, you're nice seated athletes. You can now reach to the right, far right at an angle. What that's causing is shifting weight, but it's also engaging those glutes, our lower back, because we're extending out and we want to come back in. So go ahead at your own pace. Another way too is you go to the ground and then you extend out. You go down the middle, down to the right, down to the left. So go ahead and continue. Whether you're a seated athlete, you're on the ground, or you're choosing to do standing. And once you're done, grab some water. All righty, so we're done today. I'll make sure John